Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? This is Leo Naranjo IV, candidate for governor in 2026. What you are looking at right now is downtown Sacramento, my old stomping grounds. Look at this building. Isn't this building pretty? We got the gates. Let me give you a little inside tour here, because the gates are locked. Probably wondering, well, Leo, what's the big deal? Who cares? Well, this building used to be the main welfare office in downtown Sacramento. It's called the Pat Wright Building. Do you see that right there? Let's see if we can get a zoom. Balance myself. Let's see if we can get a zoom. Look at that. County of Sacramento Department of Human Assistance. The lettering has been removed. Now, there are still a lot of cars around here. And we're not too sure if there are actually workers inside, I would imagine, but this was the main trafficking in and out for Sacramento County. This was the service place that delivered food stamps, cash aid for single male adults, single women adults over a particular age, unable to work. Medi-Cal for those that didn't have normal medical insurance within the welfare system. Look at this. County of Sacramento, the Pat Wright Building. Signage removed. Isn't this funny? Because this is where I worked for 11 years. This building was literally a fixture in downtown Sacramento. And I say that because right here, you had a freeway. 99, Highway 80, the Highway 50 interchange. On the other side of this building, you have light rail. Up and down, brought people here. It brought folks here to apply for benefits. Now in the heyday, because everybody likes to go do that historical content of how great things were or weren't under the COVID era. Under the COVID era, 2 years after I had already retired from here, these people worked continuously with the public, totally in violation of the standing COVID rules at the time. See, there's the light rail tracks. Let me go across here. You can see it down there, light rail. Yeah. These folks had infection rates of 5 to 10 people a day. And if you recall, getting something locked down only needed about 5 people in a week. The county wasn't really taking care of their workers. The county wasn't really doing anything except pushing the paperwork for people to apply for benefits. Let's look inside here, my old group. Yes, yes. This is where folks came. This is where folks were evaluated by social workers. This is where people were determined to be on cash aid for periods of time or for short periods of time. This is where fraud could be detected, may have been detected, or was not reported, depending on the worker. You still have some folks showing up here thinking that they got a building to go to, and they don't. Everything is moved downtown. It's what we call the Florence Center area, where they've moved all services. Yep. These folks here, when they worked at 28th Street under COVID, mind you, I'd already been retired from 2017. So COVID was 2 or 3 years after I left this building. And I worked here for 11 years. These folks were so screwed by the county management. They were so screwed by the leadership here that during COVID, They didn't know who to turn to or what to do. The union was weak on defending their rights. So what did they do? They turned to me and they reached out for assistance. What can you do? What can you say? What can you help us with? Do something, please. And even though I was retired, even though I was no longer with this workforce, what I did is I reached out to the media folks and I let them know that you had military people down here at 28th Street doing something in downtown Sacramento, the National Guard. And were they aware that they had been redeployed to this general area? Within 48 hours, there was a news crew here. 12 hours after that, the county issued an explanation. 12 hours after that, the staff here told me, I don't know what you did, but it changed some of the mentality here as opposed to COVID in this building. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call impactful. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call trust. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a loyalty to the degree that these folks trusted me enough to handle a problem that their management and union should have handled and were unable to. There's some old buildings here in this general area. So, why did this building close down? I'll tell you why. Because before COVID, this building was very prominent on raping the food stamp program. We didn't care whether people got on it. We cared if they applied for it. That was the first scam, the application process. County did not appreciate having a 2-minute introduction to the food stamp program if clearly you knew that the person was never going to qualify, which I knew. Once you got them on the program, we didn't care how much they got. That was inconsequential. Whether it was $5, the lowest I'd seen, or $750, one of the higher numbers that I've seen. I've seen all the way up to $1,000 a month in payment for food stamps. The amount getting paid was not the point. The fact that they were in the program to be managed was the point. That was the next scam that was pulled here. Money was siphoned off and spread around the county for various pet projects. That's why the food stamp program was always massively time studied, or what that means for the layman, the amount of work that you charge in working for a particular program. Basically, we were told to lie on what we did in the course of our day so that we could bill the federal government for the food stamp program management of it. When Trump was first elected, those numbers started getting crunched. But when Trump got booted and Biden replaced him, now we have a new scam, and it was called Medi-Cal. Get them in, get them on, and that's how they got their next flood of cash that worked in the welfare system. CalWorks was a family program that was delved in downtown. But we did deal with folks that were here on the CAPI program, Cash Assistance for Immigrants. Cash Assistance Payment for Immigrants program, CAPI. Literally, those folks could get up to $1,500, $2,000 a month. Now that Trump is back in, he's cut the food stamp program. He's cut the Medi-Cal program. He's removing the illegals from getting into the system. They've suspended being able to get them into the system. Money has dried up. The scam is starting to be impacted by the fist clenching on moving some of these folks out of this corruptive environment. And the result is this. You can call it what you want, and I'm sure the manager of DHA definitely calls it this. It's a reorganization and a restructuring. This building is so old, they could no longer afford to maintain it. But what is it that they actually maintain? It's not even a county-owned building. It's a county-owned leased building. Now, rumors say the city want this property. The city, as they say, is tired of the welfare program being here. The city is tired of the riffraff that it attracted here. And across the street, don't forget, there's a food bank. So you got even more people to come down this way. Yes, yes, yes. Once long ago, there was something that was painted along these very walls, and it said, "Get a job." Painted over long ago. So this is what happens when you tight fist money. This is what happens when you can no longer scam a system. You start having the withdrawals of county services of consolidation. Was I aware of this when I worked here? Of course I was. I was in love because I was turning in 400 or 500 cases a month for potential fraud investigations. Hell no. They chastised the hell out of me for being that aggressive. But 400 or 500 cases a month that I report? Well, gee, Leo, that's a lot. So what? So what? 80% of them were caught and resulted in benefits either being reduced or terminated or sanctioned, which meant they couldn't apply for a set period of time, anywhere from 3 months to 3 years. I wasn't liked for doing the job that I did. I was very effective what I did, however. And I was very effective at that job. And still represented members as members of the union, and still took care of business when it came to safety in this building and all the other buildings in Sacramento County that dealt with the Department of Human Assistance. 5,500 employees under my care for safety. Yippers. That's what happened here. Positions were made here. Friends were promoted here. The grift, the graft, the nepotism, a lot of it was here. When there was a wash of money, they created manager positions so that they could manage the newfound wealth and give job to friends. They brought up other underlings to promote them to manage the newly created department of whatever so they could hold on to the funding. And when the time frame came that there were too many reports of fraud, they told us to stop reporting it. Until suddenly the investigators were worried about losing their jobs because they had nothing to do, and then they reached out and begged the workforce to pick it back up again. A lot of this seemed to be for show. Most of it was to actually help those that needed help. But on any daily event, on any day from day to day, we replaced nearly 300 to 400, and that's a soft estimate, EBT cards, those little plastic credit cards that you see. They got replaced. How much did that cost daily? Transit tickets. We gave out transit tickets for folks here to ride the light rail. For the public, cost them $75 to $100. For us, $25 was all it cost the client. The rest, subsidies back to the city. Wow. There's a gaff right there. So that these people can ride up and down light rail. The joke of the day was, because they're looking for employment, most of these people just got the free ride all over the place, on the buses, on the light rail. There wasn't no job search. It was just going from point A to point D on somebody else's dime. There are a lot of good people here. I've seen some good people that work here, and there were some that I wouldn't give 2 cents worth. Some of these folks had a bad spiel here at the county. They had supervisors that glorified in who they could destroy 1 month at a time. And generally, they picked an employee and went out of their way to do just that, and destroy that employee's career and sometimes their personage. This building had weapons that came in daily, and in spite all of the noise from the employees, they never installed metal detectors, but you got them in Social Security. Got them at the airports, but not here. And finally, when there is one too many shootings in the general area, as a safety officer, I convinced the sheriffs to provide us with a class, and people here were shocked at the amount of weapons that they saw daily being confiscated by the sheriff deputies that worked here, that were assigned here. Up to and including a machete. 2.5 foot long machete, almost 3 foot long. Cars had been vandalized by people that got upset. Workers have been threatened. One was killed downtown. Anti-gay activities. There's been a lot here. Fond memories? Yes. Good memories? Perhaps, depending on your viewpoint. But as far as a building that helped people in need, this building served many purposes. For the workforce to the public, it was a hand up for people who had been beaten down and were on their last legs. This was to pull them out of the morass that they were in and to set them on a path to be independent and to at least be stable. But some of this building had nefarious purposes as well. How to get money for the county, how to skim money for the county. Long ago, there was an investigation, literally went nowhere because it was internal. Veterans funds poured into this department, and they were intermingled with county funds. Totally illegal. Did that manager suffer anything? No, they didn't suffer anything. Because they were a friend of a friend of a friend. And this is what happens when you get too chummy with your union, when you get too chummy with your council, when you get too chummy in not doing your job and having more meetings for picnics and kumbayas than you are managing and doing what you need to do. This was not business as normal. This was a business. And Sacramento County was profiting from this business. And now, because of the man with the plan in charge of the White House, those funds have dried up. The slop that was passed through here under the guise of assistance has gone away. And now the tab is coming due, and here's the result of it. The Sacramento County building, the Pat Wright building, Department of Human Assistance, states they can no longer afford the maintenance nor the upkeep to a facility that's been here well over 40 or 50 years. Isn't that amazing? Imagine how much more will disappear when they start rolling back what they can't afford in the state of California throughout the state of California. Doesn't need a DOGE. It needs somebody with a firm hand to get these people to do their jobs, which is manage their department, safeguard public money, and account for what they do and how they do it. My name is Leo Naranjo IV, and I'm a candidate for governor in the 2026 race. Leo Naranjo, the number 4gov.com is where you'll find my website. Please consider me when you get your ballot mailed to you in the month of May. We can help people, but let's do it wisely. And that's my expectation for departments like this. Stop skimming money and start doing your job. God bless everybody out there. You folks have a wonderful afternoon.